Why You Wouldn't Last a Day in a Roman Bathhouse, and more introduction. Wherever you are, however your day has been, you're here now. And that's enough. You've chosen to drift back through time. Not through battles or triumphs, but through the quiet, sweaty, and sometimes uncomfortable corners of human history. Tonight, we begin in the marble steam of an ancient Roman bathhouse, a place where the elite and the everyday collided in heat, oil, and ritual. It may sound grand, but like much of Rome, beneath the marble facade, you'll find smells, sounds, and sensations that might just wear you down before noon. So settle in, let the past wash over you, slowly, like warm water over stone. We'll move gently, one scene at a time, through 4 windows into the Roman world. You don't need to remember everything, just follow the rhythm. And if you drift off, that's perfectly fine. Now, let's begin with what might seem like a moment of luxury, a bath, a daily ritual in Rome, but not the kind you're thinking of. Segment 1. Why You Wouldn't Last a Day in a Roman Bathhouse. Imagine this. It's the year 122 CE. The Roman Empire stretches wide, its banners fluttering from Britannia to Mesopotamia. You are a free citizen of Rome. And today, like most days, you're going to the bathhouse. At first, the idea is appealing. A communal space, leisure, warm water, perhaps even conversation or a massage. But once you step inside, things become less ideal. The entrance is busy, always, not chaotic. Rome prides itself on order, but crowded in that distinctly human way. The air is thick, not just warm, humid, heavy. It clings to your skin before you even undress. You make your way into the appetite. There are no lockers. Instead, a young boy, a slave, is assigned to watch your belongings. Not because he's trustworthy, but because theft is so common, even here, among citizens, that someone has to be watching at all times. And now, you're naked. Not partially, entirely. No towels, no robes. This is normal here. Expected, but perhaps for you, new to the experience, it's more than a little unnerving. As you walk on the smooth, damp stone floors, you feel each chill of standing water. Some of it is from spilled basins. Some, you hope, is just water. But you know better. The plumbing, though advanced for its time, leaks. Drainage is imperfect, and not everyone is as hygienic as they pretend. You begin in the tepidarium, the warm room. Here, the warmth begins to loosen your limbs. The air is milder. You acclimate. You think, maybe this won't be so bad? But soon, it's time to move into the caldarium, the hot room. A furnace underneath the stone heats the floors and walls. The air is thick as broth. You breathe. There's no sitting still. The stone benches are too hot. Instead, you walk slowly, pacing. Some pour hot water from bronze buckets over themselves. Others groan and sweat profusely. A man beside you begins to scrape oil from his body using a curved metal tool. This is the Roman substitute for soap. You're handed a jar of perfumed olive oil. You rub it in, then scrape it off, dragging sweat, dust, and dead skin with it. There's a bucket nearby for the residue. It's mostly full. You try not to look inside. You're sweating through your eyebrows. The air is nearly unbreathable. The steam fogs your vision. Someone bumps into you. Their shoulders sticky and damp. No one apologizes. Eventually, you move toward the frigandarium, the cold plunge. You think it'll be refreshing, but it's shockingly cold. No gentle easing in. You're expected to simply jump. The water bites your skin. You gasp despite yourself. Others are watching. You submerge to your neck and sit still, trying to slow your breathing. The marble is slick beneath you. You grip the edge carefully. Stories of slips and bruises in this room are common. Some bathhouses allow slaves and servants in. Others don't. But even among citizens, the class lines blur here. Senators and cobblers might share a bench, though never truly as equals. There's noise. Always noise. Conversations echo against stone. Loud laughter. The bark of a vendor selling honey cakes near the entrance. The gurgle of pipes. The slap of wet feet on tile. The smell, too, is a thing of its own. A mix of oil, sweat, incense, and mildew. Sometimes, the air is perfumed. Other times, it's fermented. Afterward, if you can afford it, you might receive a massage. Not with gentle hands. The masseur is usually strong, brisk, and it feels more like kneaded bread than relaxation. And then, finally, you return to the changing room. Your clothes, if still there, are damp from the steam. You're exhausted, flushed perhaps, cleaner. Though you're not quite sure, you've survived a single afternoon at the bath. And for many Romans, this was a daily routine. A place of hygiene, yes, but also of politics, gossip, flirtation, and fatigue. As you leave, you pass a boy pouring buckets of cold water over the stones to rinse them. The water pools at your feet. It's streaked with oil. The marble glows softly in the early evening light. The air outside feels strange. Too dry, too bright. You walk home slowly, tired, a little dizzy, and very glad that tomorrow maybe you'll just skip the bath. Segment 2. The rise and ruin of Emperor Commodus as you leave the steamy, chaotic bathhouse behind. The path of Roman daily life narrows, and we now turn toward the marbled halls of power. Let us shift gently to the inner world of an emperor, not one of marble idealism, but of deterioration. Imagine you're standing in the heart of imperial Rome around the year 180 CE. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, is dead. The empire grieves, or pretends to. His son, Commodus, has taken the throne, and everything begins to fray. At first glance, Commodus seems like a gift from the gods. Young, athletic, handsome, born into rule, he's been raised in the shadow of one of Rome's most respected emperors, with the finest tutors and commanders shaping his every step. He enters the stage not as a conqueror, but as the child of Pax Romana, the peace his father so deeply valued. But Commodus does not want to write philosophy. He wants to play. His passions do not lie in governing. Not truly. Instead, he's drawn to the arena, to performance, to the fantasy of being adored, not respected. He becomes obsessed with the gladiator persona, not as a casual spectator, but as a performer. At night, torches flicker in the private arenas of his palaces. He dons the armor of a sector-heavy shield, short sword, and stages elaborate mock battles. At first, it's harmless, a prince pretending. But then, he ascends the throne, and play becomes policy. He renames Rome, literally. For a time, it is no longer Roma, but Colania Commodiana, the colony of Commodus. The Senate is renamed, even the months all rewritten in his honor. The political structure, once delicately balanced, begins to tilt toward something more unstable. Commodus is not so much cruel, not yet. As he is distracted, detached, easily influenced, he places immense trust in a series of favorites, often corrupt, sometimes violent, who rule through flattery and fear while Commodus indulges in spectacle. His chamberlain, Clinder, becomes notorious for selling government positions. Offices once earned through merit or loyalty now go to the highest bidder. And the people, they're uneasy, but entertained. Commodus ensures the ludi. Bread and spectacle, gladiatorial contests swell in scale. Exotic animals are brought in from across the empire. He slays them himself, sometimes dozens in a day, from a raised platform. Lions, tigers, ostriches. He believes himself to be Hercules reborn. Even commissions statues of himself in the lioness skin, club in hand. But beneath the spectacle, things worsen. The empire, already vast and brittle, begins to creak. Frontier legions grumble. Grain shipments falter. Plots fester in corners of the palace. And then, a failed assassination attempt. His sister, Lucilla, is among the conspirators. She is exiled, executed. From this point on, something inside Commodus changes. He retreats from official functions, stops attending Senate meetings, appoints new favorites. Has old ones killed. The executions multiply. Rome begins to feel the tremor of tyranny. And yet, he still fights in the arena. Not in public combat. That would be too dangerous. But in staged contests. His opponents are often disabled or weakened, forced to lose. Sometimes, he simply slays beasts with javelins from the safety of a platform. Always, he emerges victorious. He charges the imperial treasury a fortune for each performance. In essence, the empire pays him to pretend. By the final years of his reign, Commodus is largely isolated, surrounded by fear and paranoia. He insists on being called Dominus, ETDS master and god. Even his closest allies begin to waver. They whisper behind heavy curtains. They plan. On the final day of 192 CE, Commodus is scheduled to appear yet again, in gladiator garb to celebrate the new year. But that night, as he bathes and prepares, a conspirator slips something into his wine. Drowsy, he's helped to bed, and then strangled in silence by a wrestler named Narcissus. No fanfare, no arena, no applause, just the quiet gasp of a dying man, and a heavy stillness. His death is announced quietly the next morning. The Senate moves swiftly to damn his memory. His statues are torn down. His name scrubbed from inscriptions. Rome pretends he never existed. But memory is a stubborn thing. In time, some will say he was simply misunderstood. Others, a fool. Still others, a symptom of an empire beginning to rot from within. Whatever the truth, Commodus remains a figure half in shadow, draped in animal skins, grinning behind a gladiator's helmet. Not a madman, but a man who mistook power for play, in a Rome that allowed it. Let's leave his flickering torchlit stage now, and move instead to a city where everything froze. Not in politics, but in ash. Segment 3. Pompeii's Preserved Secrets. Let us now drift from the political corridors of imperial Rome to a quieter place, a coastal town, once ordinary, nestled beneath a sleeping mountain. Pompeii. Close your eyes. Imagine warm cobbled streets beneath your feet. the gentle murmur of fountains, market stalls just beginning to open in the early morning light, and rising beyond the rooftops, hazy in the distance, Mount Vesuvius, still, unassuming. In 79 CE, Pompeii was a bustling town of perhaps 11,000 people, not a capital, not a battleground, just a city like so many others in the Roman world, with shops, taverns, public baths, temples, and homes of both the wealthy and the working poor. It was not a grand place, but it was alive. What makes Pompeii unique is not what happened in its life, but in its death, because on a late summer day, the mountain but this isn't the story of the eruption itself. Not in vivid detail. Rather, this is a story of stillness, of what remains, of the strange, accidental miracle that allowed a vanished city to whisper to us again. For centuries, Pompeii lay forgotten, buried beneath layers of ash and time, until the 18th century, when excavations began, cautiously at first, then with growing curiosity. And what they found was life, frozen, mid-step. Let us take a quiet walk through its street. Here, a bakery, stone mills, still standing, a brick oven. In some, loaves of bread were found carbonized in the exact shapes they were when placed there nearly 2,000 years ago. The bakers had fled. The ovens stayed hot. Over there, a thermopolium, a kind of Roman street food counter. Jars sunk into marble counters, used to serve lentils, meats, and wine to pack. Some still contain traces of their last meals. On one wall, graffiti, "I don't want to sell my body, but hunger forces me." Another reads simply, "Successus was here. We drank, we laughed, we left." Pompeii's wasps speak in whispers, some rude, some tender. One house has a mosaic with a simple word, salve, welcome. Another, more cheeky, cave canem, beware of the dog, under a picture of a rather unthreatening pup. Even more telling is what we find in the homes. The Villa of the Mysteries, just outside the city walls, houses a frescoed room of deep red and haunting beauty. Life-size figures, women in various states of ritual or ecstasy, dancing, being whipped, embracing. The meaning is still debated. A Dionysian rite, a marriage ritual. Here, archaeology becomes something closer to poetry, because much of what survives in Pompeii is not monumental. It's mundane, the contents of kitchen shelves, a child's toy, the bronze hinges of a door, and yet, the casts. In the 19th century, archaeologists discovered that where bodies had once been buried in ash hollows, spaces remained. They filled them with plaster and captured the shapes of those who fell. A man shielding his face, a mother curled around her child, a dog twisted and contorted by fear. They are not shown here to shock, only to remind that history is not just kings and wars. It is also people, quietly living, suddenly gone, and still. There is so much we don't understand. Why did some stay behind, even after the first rumblings? Why were some homes sealed, shutters closed, as if for a storm? Was there denial, hope, resignation? Pompeii leaves us with questions, not loud ones, but persistent. Why do we write on walls? Why do we eat in public? Why do we love, even knowing how fragile everything is? Let us now step carefully away from these silent ruins, back up the Via della Bendanza, past the shops and the fountains, through the city gate, and into a different kind of Roman life, one far more comfortable, far more curated. Let's journey, now, to the countryside, where the elite retreated behind columns and gardens, to a world of mosaics, whispered orders, and quiet, cultivated power. Segment 4. Life in a Roman Villa. Not all cushions and grapes now. Let us leave the dusty lanes of Pompeii behind and turn our steps down a gentler path, through olive groves that rustle in the breeze, past low stone walls draped in vines, to a sprawling estate nestled in the rolling countryside. You are approaching a Roman villa. This is no mere farmhouse, though farms it did. It is a rural estate, a private world, owned by a wealthy Roman, perhaps a senator, a former general, or a patrician born to land and legacy. Imagine arriving here. You pass through the vestibulum, the entrance hall, and step into the atrium. Sunlight spills from the open roof above, dappling the marble floor. A small pool, the impluvium, collects rainwater, flanked by columns. Everything is quiet. Curated. But while it may seem serene, life in a villa was far from idle. Behind every carved door was a world of order, labor, and power. The master, the dominus, might rise early. Perhaps he reads scrolls in the library or consults with his steward about harvest yields. He does not plow fields, but he oversees those who do. The villa is a machine, and he is its center. Beyond the living quarters stretch the agricultural wings. Warehouses filled with grain, presses for olives, fermentation rooms for wine. In some, there are fish ponds. In others, tiled hot rooms for curing meat. The villa is not only a retreat, it is a business, and it runs on the labor of dozens, sometimes hundreds. Slaves, freedmen, tenant, farmers, In the kitchen, a cook stirs a pot over a clay stove. In the courtyard, a young slave polishes silver with oil-soaked cloth. Others tend the bath complex. Many villas had private baths, stoking fires beneath the floor to warm the water from below. And in the peristyle garden, a rectangular courtyard framed by columns, the mistress of the house strolls, perhaps reciting poetry or teaching her children. She is educated, literate, but confined. Her duties lie within the household, hosting, overseeing the domestic staff, and ensuring the villa's image reflects the family's status. Let us pause here. In the garden, the hedges are trimmed in geometric precision. A fountain babbles softly. There is a bench carved from marble, warmed by the sun. You can almost smell the rosemary, the lavender. It is peaceful, but this peace comes at a cost. For most of those within the villa walls, this is not leisure, it is labor. To be born into bondage here is to live in careful, quiet obedience. Some slaves in villas had relatively privileged lives, literacy, positions of trust, the chance to buy freedom. Others labored in silence or vanished in the records altogether. And yet, the villa endures in imagination, a symbol of refinement, of culture, of otium, Roman leisure. Here, philosophy was discussed over figs and cheese. Here, Virgil might be recited while sipping watered wine. At night, oil lamps flicker along the corridor walls. The villa becomes a world unto itself, removed from the noise of Rome. In the dark, the countryside stretches quiet and eternal, as if time itself were held still. But of course, even these lives, comfortable, insulated, were not untouched by history. Invasions came, taxes rose, emperors fell. Villas were abandoned, looted, or buried by time. Today, some survive only as outlines in the earth. Others, like those in Herculaneum or along the Bay of Naples, remain partially preserved, offering glimpses of a forgotten rhythm, a world of slow mornings, carefully managed labor, and hushed, marble afternoons. Now, we gently close the door in this villa. You've traveled through sweat and steam in the bathhouse, followed the unraveling of an emperor, walked among the ashes of a frozen city, and stood amid the quiet power of the Roman elite. Let us now bring this journey to a close. Conclusion, drifting back from Rome, and now, as the lamps dim across the Roman world, we gently step away from its tiled floors and towering columns. You have walked the steam-choked corridors of a Roman bath. You've watched an emperor stumble under the weight of his own illusions. You've wandered a city frozen in ash, reading the scribbles of those long gone, and you've sat quietly in the courtyards of the rural rich, where comfort whispered and labor hummed quietly in the background. Ancient Rome, so often draped in grandeur, becomes something more subtle in the stillness of night. Less marble, more mortars, less triumph, more routine. It wasn't all triumphal arches and golden laurel crowns. It was scraped skin and olive oil, scribes hunched by candlelight, children chasing pigeons in dusty forums, and dreams, big and small, dreamt behind stone walls. In the end, what survives of Rome is not just empire. It's the ordinary, the overlooked, the bread left in the oven, the dog curled by the door, the echo of sandals in an empty street. And now, perhaps, you are ready to let go of the day, to drift, as the Romans once did, into a softer world of quiet, of darkness, of sleep. May your dreams be peaceful, may the past fade gently around you, and may you wake with the comfort of knowing you live in a time of clean water, soft beds, and no communal oil scrapers. Sleep well, until the next time, when we wander back into history, together.